What it do, baby? Uploaded today. Go ahead and hit me with a bruh if you can hear me. Let me go ahead and bring this over for y'all can see that bad boy. And close. Well, that's what I'll do. Make a little folder for that. That's notes. I'll create a new folder in this. Call it new folder. Call it 101 Labs CCNA. Keep it in there. That way I ain't gotta worry about that all the damn time. Come on, ride it, train. And ride it. Come on. Go ahead and drag and drop two switches to the topology. We got Brendan in the building. What's going on, Brendan? Shout out Brendan for tuning in early. What else we needed here? Got a folder over here that I was looking for. Not that bad boy. Gonzalo in the building representing Buenos Aires. We got Danny. What's going on, Danny? I'm glad you tuned in, Danny, because I rely on you, Danny. Danny be giving us all the information we need here. Again, go ahead and drag and drop two switches and just set one link between the two. We're going to make those a trunk. We'll go ahead and use gigabit 0. Let's go ahead and use 0.1, just like this right here. Gigabit 0.1. Name this guy switch 1 and the other guy switch 2. How you guys doing today? It is about to be Friday. We are wrapping up the week. What is it? We got Valentine's Day coming up. We got some Valentine's couples in the house, or people that's preparing for Valentine's Day or anything. Let's go ahead and power these bad boys on. Hopefully they play nicely with us today. Y'all know GNS3 be acting up on me. Brendan is ready to learn. So am I, dude. I was literally taking a nap and dreaming about SwitchPort Dynamic and DTP. This is also known as Dynamic Trunking Protocol. Believe it or not, I realized the more you do this stuff, right, the more often you do it, especially on nights before you like cram and study and stuff like that, you start dreaming about IP addressing and different protocols. I know that's kind of weird. I know that's weird. But when you start doing this very often, you start seeing this stuff in your sleep, man. And as a matter of fact, I remember talking to an old coworker of mine from my old job. He was a CCIE written candidate. And he said, man, once you start studying this stuff a lot, you start dreaming about this stuff. So y'all let me know when y'all start getting that feeling. And I hope y'all get that feeling too. I'm not wishing, anything crazy on y'all mentally or anything. But it's just something that happens once you start doing this stuff more often. Again, we get the content from 101 Labs, Cisco CCNA version 4. You can get a copy of this book from 101labs.net, Learn by Doing, authored by Paul Browning and Farai Tafa, co-authored by Farai Tafa. Paul Browning left behind a career in law enforcement in 2000 and started an IT consulting and training company. And Farai Tafa is a double CCIE in route switch and service provider, or ISP, however you want to call it. Experts agree that we retain only 10% of what we read, but 90% of what we do, which is why I'm always preaching kinetic learning. So anyways, get you a copy of this book from 101labs.net, or there's also a link in the description box below, and you can follow along with these labs here. I also realized there's an 8-part series, like an 8-book series, not just for CCNA. They have 101 Labs for Linux. Well, I kind of knew that too, but I realized, maybe I could start doing those too instead of doing just CCNA, because to be a network engineer, you got to be well-rounded. you got to have some Linux skills. And guess what? They have a Linux Plus book, 101 Labs Linux Plus, right? They also have the CCNP version. So once we get through this book, I'm definitely going to do CCNP. So 101 Labs of CCNP. That's why I keep telling y'all, get some other people that are new to this stuff to join us, because this is the CCNA level stuff. So the associate level. Then we'll be doing the CCNP level, which is the professional level. So we'll be doing more complex OSPF stuff, more like complex natting, more EIGRP stuff that are like a lot more complex. So it is a harder level. Linux would be dope. Yes, Linux would be dope. They also have a Wireshark 101 Labs for I've always wanted to learn a little bit more about Wireshark. I know what it is, and know a little bit of the basics of it. But they have a 101 Labs Wireshark book. They also have, what else they got? They got a whole bunch of them in here. Let me see. I think they're in here. See if I can pull them up. Nah, they're not in here. But if I pull them up on Amazon, you'll see. There's an 8-book series. Let me bring it up real quick before we, y'all. We always got a couple of late stragglers that come in. I noticed that about my viewership. It'd be a couple of you guys like Danny and Brendan that come in, log in like right at the beginning and stuff like that, or might be clicking the waiting button. But there's some people that log in maybe about 8:10, 8:15, sometimes even 8:30. Because some people are just like, they just happen to stumble upon this video. They're not subscribed to this channel. They're like, oh, this guy's dope, man. He makes this stuff easy and fun to learn. Boom, subscribe. And they come in like later on in the video. So that's why I take a little bit, a little bit of time to, talk about this stuff and, talk about how you guys' days are before we even jump into the lab. But again, if you're using Packet Tracer, GNS3, even G, whatever whatever floats your boat, I think all of those should support these two features, or this feature here, which is basically trunking is what we're doing. In the book, in the lab guide, it is looks like lab number 30. Yesterday, we did some ether channels. Y'all remember how to do those? PAGP, LACP, and static. That's what the on mode was. Static ether channels. And that's what the on mode was. I was trying to figure out what mode that was. So anyways, this is lab number 30. Setting switch ports to dynamic. It's also known as dynamic trunking protocol. So there's a couple ways we can have our switches negotiate what type of port it's going to be. We can set it to be statically access ports. And by default, access switches, their ports are set to be access switches. And we can log in and check. Let's go ahead and console into this bad boy, console into that bad boy, and y'all see. While that loads up, looks like we have a couple more people logging and tuning in here as well. But yeah, Gonzalo, they also got, I said Linux. They got a Linux book. They got a Wireshark book. They also got, let me pull that up, man. But that's the two that really stood out to me. I'm like, man, you know what? Maybe I should do that, like Wireshark Wednesdays or something like that. That way, because as a network engineer, we got to be well rounded. We can't just know Cisco iOS and that's it. You know what I mean? Because I remember my boss asking me to pull some. What do you want? He wanted me to pull some, he wanted me to set up a RSPAN port. Y'all know what RSPAN is, right? Remote span. So basically picking a port and then monitoring it. But guess what we had to monitor it with? Wireshark. And he gave me some basic filters that I could use to kind of see whatever, what we were looking for. The issue that we had was like, it had something to do with multicasting and imaging PCs. But we wanted to see what the issue was, and I had to use Wireshark. So, and I know, like I said, I know some of the basics here. See if I can pull it up. All right, so here we go. I'm gonna pull this up real quick, and then we'll get into the lab here, right? So if you go to the 101 Labs, this is the one I was looking at, right? 101 Labs. This is the Wireshark version, right? And you'll see right here it says book 5 out of 8. That's the 5. There's 8 books in this series, right? And apparently they do different versions, and right now it's version 4 for this series, right? So there's the Network Plus book. I'm not too big on CompTIA tests or anything like that, unless you're like super brand new to the IT field, which I was. I took the Network Plus years ago, probably like 2012 or something like that. And there's an IP subnetting book. If that's a pretty tough subject, we can maybe do a subnetting. That's usually a topic that scares away people from networking, subnetting. There's the A+ book. They have the CCNP book, which I'm definitely going to get for sure, because this is the next exam I was going to study for, the NRC exam. There's the Wireshark book. Oh, geez, I'm not even showing it to y'all. Oh, yeah, I am. So, yeah, there's the Wireshark book. They also have, yeah, this is the CCNA book. This is the one we're using right here. And lastly, this is the Linux LPIC book. And this is Linux. This is really Linux right here. And there's another Linux book right here. This is the CompTIA Linux. And I believe this is like an official one for Linux or like an open standard. Well, they're both kind of like vendor neutral books, but they're both Linux. This is Linux Essentials test. This is Linux Plus test, which is CompTIA. So there's actually 9 books in this series right here. I don't know why they said 8 books. Somebody miscounted there. Somebody fired that guy at Amazon. Anyways, we should be consoled into those 2 right now, and hopefully them switches done woke up, because y'all know my switches be sleepy for some reason. We do these Monday through Thursday, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Can y'all see my screen there? Okay, I forgot there's a little delay on that. Let's go ahead and name this guy Switch 1. The other guy Switch 2. I'm consoling him as well. But do you have any cloud knowledge? Not at all. None whatsoever. I know the vendors, you know, AWS, Azure, I have no knowledge at all. We leverage cloud technologies at my job, and that is something I want to learn a little bit more in the future. So the CompTIA has a Cloud Plus exam. Maybe I'll do something. That's something else I want to, you know, dabble. I don't even want to just dabble in it. I want to get a lot more knowledge in cloud. There's a lot of money to be made in that for sure. And y'all know I'm about my money. I don't know. I don't really preach that on my channel, but I'm about my money. So, but yeah, we got to get into some cloud. We got to get some cloud knowledge as a network engineer. Everything is moving off premises. Not everything, but a lot of people are moving their stuff onto the cloud. So I've scheduled my Azure fundamentals next month. That's what's up, Gonzalo. See, Gonzalo is a step ahead of us. He's getting his Cisco iOS knowledge over here, but he's also doing some Azure studying on the side. And yeah, I want to do the same thing too. But me, I'm steering towards AWS because my job basically has an AWS infrastructure. So I want to learn a little bit more of that. Linux would be dope. I would need to get dirty with Linux. Yeah, I you know what? I agree too, Gonzalo. And I said this a bunch of times on my channel, but I had an interview, a job interview, where they asked me some Linux questions, and needless to say, I did not get that job. So, you know, I was able to answer the basic Linux questions, but they started getting deeper and deeper. Let's see what this guy really knows about Linux. You know, past the screening interview. Once I got there, the 2 interviewers, they grilled me, and I did not get that job. So yeah, we got to get our Linux game. We got to step our Linux game up, man. Anyway, I'm not pressed. He's waking up now. We named him Switch. We're going to name him Switch 1. Y'all remember how to do this, right? Changing the host name. He's Switch 1. He is gonna be Switch. What am I doing? Talking too much. That's what I'm doing. Host name Switch 2. We also said, here's the lab guide stuff right here. Let me pull this to the side so y'all can see better. Let's see all of this. Setting SwitchPorts to dynamic. The objective of this lab is for you to learn to understand how to set the auto negotiation type on the trunk link. So again, this is going to be our trunk link, right? And by default, we can check to see what they are. I believe they're access ports. So we just do, this is interface gig 101, right? And we'll do show interface gig interfaces gig 01. And then I meant to put a SwitchPort keyword at the end there. And this guy's slow. So right now it's set to, by default, dynamic auto. Y'all know what I mean? It's just, it'll set to negotiate with the other side. And as you can see right there, it's negotiating to trunk. So if we set this side right here, because this is switch 2 I'm logged into, right? We can do the same thing on that side, but we'll go on this side, right? If we set this guy to trunk, he will be negotiating with that guy, and he will just automatically, like, okay, let's be a trunk together, because he's set to negotiate. Now, if we hard-coded him as a trunk and set this guy as a trunk, they'll be trunks as well. But if we set them both to non-negotiate, then he will stay as a switch port, and he will stay it'll just let's see what happens. I believe it won't negotiate as a trunk. It'll say we can't be a trunk. So let's do this. I'm gonna set this guy. He's already set to auto. Oh, he's set to negotiate, right? So we'll see. Let's see what else he has on there, right? Shell run interface GI01. And he's set to auto negotiate right there. That's how we can tell, right? Now, if we set this guy to hard code as a trunk, he will become a trunk because he's set to auto negotiate. But if we hard code him as a switch port, let's see what happens, right? But right here it says here, let me not stray away from the lab purposes here, because I like to, y'all know I like to like experiment and stuff like that when we need to follow. Let's stay on task here. So switch interfaces are set to automatically attempt to create a trunk link with when connected to another switch. You need to know how to set either dynamic desirable or dynamic auto. Right now they're both set to dynamic auto, right? How can we tell? Because of that right there. It's set to dynamic auto. That's how it says. Lab topology, use the following topology to complete this exercise, which this is what we did. Switch 1, switch 2. In preparation for the configuration, configure a host name, switch 1 as well as switch 2. We did that already, right? Strike through. Come on, where my strike through at? Come on, ride that train and ride it. Y'all know where that song stuck in my head? Because I was telling y'all, I was thinking to you guys, you guys are going to ride the train of my learning journey here. You guys, you know, my ultimate goal, I know it may take a while, is to become a CCNA network engineer, right? Have that level of knowledge, and I'm gonna bring all you guys with me. So that's why I keep telling y'all, tune in with me. We're doing all the easy stuff, but you guys are gonna ride the train, the learning journey with me. Configure switch 1 so that auto negotiation of trunking is set to dynamic auto. So right now we have it to dynamic auto, but it's static access as an access port. So we wanted to set it to dynamically auto negotiate as a trunk. So dynamically auto negotiate as a trunk, right? Which side did he say? Both sides? Yeah, switch 1 he said. So go to switch 1 and we're going to interface GI0/1. Hard coding them to trunks, I believe, is a Cisco best practice. That depends. You don't want every single port to trunk, right? Because you have some ports that are, me too, I'm on the long train to CCIE. That's what's up, Brendan. You know what? It might take us a year or two, but guess what? We're doing all the CCNA stuff right now. Then we're going to be doing CCNP stuff right now. We're going to like drill that stuff in our heads. We're all going to pass the exams, and then we're all going to become Cisco CCIE certified. You know, it might take us a while. People might laugh at our goals and stuff like that, but we're going to do it. And you're going to come along with me, Brendan. You too, Danny. So interface gig 01, we want to set him to dynamically auto negotiate as a trunk. Oh, so back to your point, Brendan. Hard coding them as trunks are best practice, I believe. Well, it is if you want it to be a trunk link, right? If you want it to like most likely like an uplink, like a switch connected to another switch. But we have other switches, other ports that are going to be connected to PCs, right? Computers. We don't want those ports to be trunks, do we? So it is best practice to hard code the trunk link, the uplinks as trunks, but the other ports that connect to like computers and servers and stuff like that, mostly computers and like phones and stuff, we want those to be statically access ports. But the if we have a server that might have like multiple VLANs, then yeah, that will be set at hard code as a trunk. So it's best practice to hard code them as a trunk, but not all the ports. Do you agree, Brendan? So interface gig 01, we say SwitchPort mode, and we do SwitchPort mode. We'll see all of the functions here, right? That's the main meat and potatoes of what we're trying to learn here. SwitchPort mode, right? Our options here are to statically access them as a trunk unconditionally. That's the ones we want to connect to PCs, phones, access. Well, not necessarily access points, because we can have a trunk to an access point. Just like a regular device. I don't know, a laptop that's hard, wired, anything like that as an access port. .1Q, if we want to set the encapsulation, we'll set that to as a .1Q. That's a .1Q tunnel, not necessarily a trunk. But this is what we were looking for, though. Set the trunking mode to dynamically negotiate access or trunk mode. And we could also hard code it as a trunk like that. That's what you were saying, I believe, Brendan. And then we could also set the private VLAN mode, which is out of scope of this exam, so we're not worried about that. That's more of a CCNP topic. So once we pass, well, I already passed. Once everybody passes the CCNA exam, we'll get the private VLANs, but don't worry about that for now. So what they were looking for was SwitchPort mode dynamic. That guy right there. Boop. Right. So we say dynamic, and then we do that. We can do auto or desirable. Right. So I don't remember who it was. It might have been Brian. Shout out Brian. You in tonight, Brian? But we can set one side to auto. If we set the other side of the auto, they will not negotiate as a trunk. Right? Auto is like, they're like, remember somebody said it yesterday. They said the auto mode is like, it's like a shy mode. But if we set them to desire, we think about it like relationships with somebody. If they desire each other, they desire to form a trunk, right? If they're auto and they're both shy, then they're just like, hey, do you like me? Do you like me? Then they don't really desire each other because they're shy and they won't form a trunk. That's how I remember it. So what they said here was auto negotiate trunking is set to dynamic desirable, and that's what they want. So we want to desire it as a trunk. So we set this to dynamic desirable, right? And let's see what happens. We go to switch 2. Oh, we set as a trunk. I didn't do that yet. I didn't do that. So, actually, let's do this. Let's see what we got so far. Show interface GI 0/1 SwitchPort. He set the dynamic desirable, and that's what happened there, right? And now he's a trunk. Now let's go to switch 2 and see what happened, right? We go to show interfaces GI 0/1 SwitchPort, and now he's a trunk. You see that? So we set one side to desirable, and he was left, switch 2 was left as auto. So we had desirable, and then auto, and they form a trunk. If we set it to auto and auto, they will not form a trunk. And they were set to were they set to non-negotiate? No, what was it before? It was negotiate, but they were set to static access. So they stayed as they were statically set as access ports. So now they're a trunk, right? And we can verify that with what? Show interfaces. Anybody remember? How can we verify other than show interfaces? Blah 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 blah. SwitchPort. Anybody remember? A way to verify that is a trunk. For you guys that's just tuning in, we are using the 101 Labs Cisco CCNA book, version 4, authored by Paul Browning and Farai Tafa. And we are on lab number 30. There's 101 labs in this book. So I say we finish by summertime, right? Is that summertime? Like towards the end of summertime. That's at least, if we do this 4 days a week, there's 101 labs, plus there's about 20 challenge labs towards the end or something like that. 2025. So there's about at least 125 labs in here. That is correct, Brendan. Show interface is trunk. Show interface is trunk. That's how we can tell. And that's how we can tell what's trunking. It's statically set to trunking. Well, it's not statically set. It's auto-negotiating as a trunk. And notice it says here, NISL. So it negotiated, but it's an ISL trunk. So this is a Cisco proprietary trunk. It is not set as a .1Q trunk, which is the open standard. Y'all remember that? So the N right here means it's negotiated, and it is set as an ISL trunk. We go to the other side and check. So yes, that shout out to Brendan for that. Show interfaces trunk is the command I was looking for. And yeah, it's set as an ISL trunk. Does anybody remember how to change it? Change the encapsulation type. Brendan, you're 1 for 1 so far. How to change the encapsulation. And what is our options? And does anybody have any questions? I know I've been asking, I've been quizzing y'all and stuff like that. I be kind of knowing these answers and stuff. I just like to get people involved. Anybody that's new in here, that's just trying to learn this stuff, man. Y'all hit me with that like button too. How can we change the encapsulation, and what options do we have? Come on, Brendan. Are you Googling over there? Danny, you've been quiet. Gonzalo been quiet. Unless Gonzalo's over there on the side studying for Linux, and he just have this stuff in the background, and he's like uses this video as ambient noise. Oh, y'all get y'all gallon of water in a day too. Come on, Brendan. Yes, so that's what I was waiting on. Switchport trunk. I was not gonna move on too. Switchport trunk encapsulation .1Q. That's exactly what I was looking for, Brendan. So let's change. Well, let's not veer off yet, but that's what we needed to do. So task 3, task 4 was to verify our configurations with appropriate show commands, and we're pretty much done, man. We wrapped this up real quick, man. But yeah, that's as a bonus lab. Let's go ahead and change the encapsulation type. Configure terminal interface GI 0/1. Switchport mode, switchport encapsulation, a switchport trunk encapsulation .1Q, right? But here's our options, right? This is what Brendan was telling us. It's set to right now as ISL and auto negotiated as that. However, we can change it to .1Q, and that'll set to one's going to be .1Q. And what's the other side? He's set to negotiate, so he should now, right before he was negotiating as an ISL trunk. We do show interfaces trunk again on side 2. And now he negotiated as a 802.1Q trunk. So basically, it's almost like Switch 2 is like a slave in a way. He's just listening to Switch 1. Like, you want to be a .1Q trunk? Okay, fine. I guess we'll be .1Q. If he switches back to ISL, he'll be like, oh, you want to be ISL? Okay, let's make an ISL trunk. And he'll do that. He'll do that all day until we change him to what? Non-negotiate. So let's do that and see what happens, just as a bonus, right? So we're going to make Switch 2 and make him a little bit more defiant here, right? So interface GI, and we're done with this lab already, right? Because they just wanted to run some show commands and see what happens. So that way we can see what we did here, right? Let's do this real quick. I want to see what's on the running configuration for GI01. Interface GI 0/1. And right now he's set to auto negotiate, right? Let's set him to Switchport non-negotiate, right? That's what we were looking for. I was watching a YouTuber, and he was having difficulties trying to figure out what that command was. And I'm glad I saw his video because he was doing, I'm not going to say who it is, but he was doing Switchport mode, and he was looking for non-negotiate. He was like, why is this not working? What the hell is going on here, man? But anyway, non-negotiate is what he was looking for. So now, right there, conflict between non-negotiate and dynamic static on this floor. So we can't do this because he's set to non-negotiate, and the other one is set to dynamic. So unless we change him to non-negotiate, let's see what happens when we do that, right? So Switchport non-negotiate. We can't do that on this side either. So what could we do to change to fix that so that way they're not negotiating? Anybody know that? Switchport, nah, yeah. So yeah, you was correct about it. No man, y'all quiet tonight, man. I guess because y'all thought it was a short lab, or it's Thursday, and y'all just like, man, I'm ready to wrap it up. How can we get this command to accept? Right now it says command rejected, right? Now I kind of don't know this one. There is a conflict. So one is set to non-negotiate, the other one is set to dynamic. How can we get this command to accept? Because right now it's set to, let's see, show run interface. Well, it depends on what we're trying to do. Do we want to set it as a trunk? Show run interface GI01, or do we want to set it as an access port? I think that's the main reason why it don't like that command right now. That's probably why. This is why. It's set to dynamic desirable, and that's what the exam called for. So dynamic desirable. Then we have an auto negotiate here, which is in a way kind of conflicting. So if we remove this guy right here and leave this guy as auto negotiate and make the other guy non-negotiate, then we'll see what happens there. So let's get rid of that real quick. No, this, right? And then try to make him non-negotiate. Boop. Oh, still couldn't take it. Interesting. There's a conflict between non-negotiate and dynamic. So we're trying to set him to non-negotiate, and right now he is set to dynamic, right? No Switchport mode, dynamic desirable. Config. It needs to be set as a trunk first. Then you can turn. Okay, so there you go. So we need to hard code it as a trunk. Okay, that makes sense. That would make sense. So we do Switchport because right now it is set. What is he set to? Interface on switch 1, Switchport do this. Show interfaces GI 0/1 switch port. He set to dynamic auto as an access port. Meanwhile, switch 2, he is set, so interfaces GI, come on man, GI 0/1, I forgot to put switch port there. He is set to as an access port. He's set to access port dynamic auto. The other guy is set to dynamic auto, and that's why they're not negotiate. They're not going to negotiate. So we need to either set one side statically as a trunk. Statically as a trunk, and the other one to auto negotiate, or the other side, as a trunk. So right now, because this guy is set to dynamic auto static access, and this guy is set to dynamic auto static access. So they're both set to auto negotiate, and they're just like, what are you doing? Well, what are you doing? In a way, if that makes any sense. So let's listen to what Brendan said. Set it to as a trunk first. Interface GI 0/1 switchport mode trunk, and then he was set to dynamic auto, so he'll probably negotiate as a trunk right now. Even though we would have to change it to non-negotiate, but let's see what happens, right? Show switchport, and now he's a trunk, right? Now let's see what happens if we non-negotiate. Oh, before we even do that, let's do this. Show interface is trunk, and we see he negotiated as a .1Q trunk. And now if we try to non-negotiate on this side, interface GI 0/1, y'all with me so far? Switchport non-negotiate, conflict still. We'd have to set him hardcode as a trunk or whatever, right? That correct? It needs to be set as a trunk first, then you can turn off DTP. So we hard-coded this guy as a trunk, and we're trying to make him not negotiate. What does he have so far? Let's look at his running configuration to really. No, actually, let's do this. Show interfaces GI 0. I like to try to do stuff without looking at the show run command. So right now he's set port as a trunk, dynamically auto, and then he's negotiating. So we can't set him to not negotiate, can we? If the other side is set to hard coded as a trunk. That correct? We can't set switch 2 to not negotiate if switch 1 is set hard-coded as a trunk. Am I correct in saying that, Brendan? Switch port. Yep, he's hard-coded as a trunk. Operational mode trunk. Switch port enabled. And this guy enabled dynamically auto as a trunk. I think that's the reason why we can't make one side. Hold up, let's do this. Show interface is trunk. I'm trying to make it so that way, yeah, we'd have to just hard code him as a trunk, because we can't set one side to trunk and then one side as an access port. I think that's the reason why I won't take that command. I'm not sure. Yeah, Brendan. Well, anyways, Brendan, I think because the reason why I won't take that command is if we set it to non-negotiate, switch 2, then he will be a switch port an access port, and he needs to either not negotiate as a trunk or hard-coded as a trunk. And right now he's set to negotiate as a trunk. And if we hard-code him as a trunk, then it should get rid of, theoretically, it should get rid of this N because he negotiated as a trunk. That make any sense? So interface, what am I doing? GI 0/1, right? And then we say switchport mode trunk. No. An interface whose trunk encapsulation is auto cannot be configured to trunk mode. Oh, so we got to get rid of that auto because we're auto dynamically. If the switch supports both ISL and .1Q, it needs the trunk protocol first. Yes, very true. Duh. I keep forgetting that too. So yes, you're right. Switch port. Good point, Brendan. I've seen this before like a million times. I don't know why I didn't think about that. So switch port trunk encapsulation .1Q. And then switchport mode trunk. Now he takes it, and then we do switchport show interfaces trunk, and it got rid of that N. So now he's hard coded as a trunk. He didn't negotiate as a trunk. So very, very, very good point, Brendan. I've seen that error a million times. I don't know why I didn't think about that, but that's the reason why I didn't take it, because it's an older iOS, so it supports both ISL and .1Q. nowadays, a lot of these switches, they don't even take this command right here. SwitchPort trunk encapsulation.1Q. So yes, very, very good point, Brennan. Y'all pay attention to what he just said right there. I think that's pretty much it, man. I've done enough experimenting. Next lab will be Monday. Again, we do this Monday through Thursday, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We didn't have my brand. We didn't have Pepper Jack in the building. We didn't see. What's his name? Out of India, Brian Connor. Next lab is lab number 31, configuring a default gateway for routers and switches. So I believe it's gonna be the first lab that we're actually we done a couple more labs. We done a couple labs that have routers and switches. So we're gonna be configuring a default gateway for routers and switches. So that should be a pretty easy one as well. That's a CCNA fundamental. If you're new to this stuff, make sure you tuned in Monday through Thursday, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. That's pretty much it. I don't have anything else. Does anybody have any questions and stuff like that? Hey, bro, you didn't answer. Yes, Brian, I forgot I saw that lab, the stream yesterday, and I forgot to answer your question. So yesterday, damn, I got a short memory. Don't remember what I did yesterday. But today, I had a switch to reboot last night because I was upgrading the iOS on it. So I set it to reboot at midnight, right? Well, I ran a continuous ping on it. And then woke up around, 4 or 5 o'clock. Guess what? That was not responding. And I was like, damn, I messed something up. I'm going to have to go on site. And normally, this week I was working remote. So I said, I'm going to go on site. I have a feeling it was stuck in Raman mode. So sure enough, I hit my boy up. I was like, hey, man, that switch didn't come back up. I'm going to go check it out. So he's like, all right, cool. So I get there. And of course, the door was locked, so I couldn't even get in. I had to wait for security. Finally came back, and my coworker was already in there. He's like, yep, he was right. It went into Raman mode. So we had pretty much set it to boot. And the iOS that I put on there, it didn't like it, I guess. So, and it was approaching the weekend. So I said, you know what, let me just leave it alone. And just had to change it so that way it boots into the iOS that we know it works. So did that, and it came back up. And then we had another switch that went down today. In one of the buildings that is like one of the outskirt buildings. And it was most likely a power issue. Of course, we couldn't even get in that either. We called security. They was like, oh, we ain't got that key. It was like this highly secure room, I guess, or whatever. Call housekeeping. They didn't have the key. She called her supervisor. They didn't have the key. So we're just like, you know what? Whoever goes in there to see the internet's down, we'll take care of it later. So that's pretty much what I did. Then I came back to the crib, and then I started working on some stuff for Snmp. The project that I have is upgrading switches to the Snmp version 3. If y'all know anything about Snmp, it's basically kind of like a protocol that you use to query the devices. And I like to think of it as the lights on the dashboard of your car. Anytime something's wrong with your car, right? You get a light on your dashboard, like the check engine light, or check the oil, or you're low on gas, or whatever, right? Well, Snmp works the same way. Anytime something's wrong with a switch, like for example, or a router or whatever, it'll throw what's called traps at you, right? These traps will let you know, hey, this interface is down, or like today, the switch is down. It's not responding to any pings, and it sends you these traps, right? Well, there's 3 different, like 2 or 3 different versions of Snmp. Snmp version 1, version 2, 2C, and version 3. And the reason why we're upgrading from version, I believe, 1 to 3 is because SolarWinds got hacked. Y'all know anything about SolarWinds? It's a monitoring tool that uses Snmp. So ever since it got hacked, and we obviously leverage Snmp in our SolarWinds in our environment, so I'm in charge of upgrading it from version 2 to version 3. So, and that's pretty much what I did today. Had a couple devices that I had to work on, and that's pretty much it. And then yesterday I prepared that one switch to upgrade to iOS. And then what else did I do? I can't remember. I got a short-term memory. What the hell did I do yesterday? I know what I did for fact today. So, yeah, that's pretty much it. Do you have the possibility to work from home? Yes, I do. Yeah, pretty much. Like after I, did what I needed to do on campus today, I came home and did what I had to do with Snmp. So, I have some meetings to go to. I didn't have any meetings today. I think tomorrow I got a meeting. So we just do that like either on Zoom or Teams or whatever. That's pretty much it, man. Got any other questions? Yes, Brian, SNMP is a monitoring protocol. So, like I said, if you guys are not familiar with it, that's how I remember it. It's basically, it's kind of like the lights on the dashboard of your car. Anytime something's wrong with it, it sends you these SNMP alerts, or they're called traps, to let you know, hey, this interface is down, or hey, this power supply is acting up, or hey, the CPU's pretty high on this switch here. Can you check it? Whatever. So, yeah, that is so cool, man. I love my job, dude. So, and it took me a while. It was a goal of mine to become a network engineer. And I want to say about like 2015, I made that goal of mine, and I finally became one last year. So, and that was how my journey went. I started out studying for the CCNA, worked in a network operations center, and then started working as a network analyst at an old company I used to work for. And so that was more of a hands-on role, where rack of switches and routers and stuff like that, and it was more of a hands-on role. And then I finally became but I wasn't really an engineer. It was we had a lot of engineer duties, but we wasn't really engineers because a lot of the configurations were designed by the network engineers, and then we pretty much had to. It was almost copy and paste, but there was like IP addressing we had to change, and maybe there's a couple tweaking we had to do. But they were basically based off of templates and stuff. So, but now this job, it's all on me. So everything's hands-on, and I love my job. So anybody inspiration? Yeah, man. Can you ask me something personal? Sure, if you want to ask me something personal, not too personal. I ain't gonna tell you everything, but yeah, ask away, man. Ask away. Yeah, I started out as in this field. I graduated from UCF, and I was working at the police department, believe it or not, as a 911 operator. And while I was working there, they had an opening for a PC technician. I'm like, hey, I got my degree in computers or in IT. Can I get a job? Y'all hiring? And then I came on board as a PC technician. Did that for a couple years. Then I started working at the school system as a desktop technician. Did that for a couple years. And then I started working in a hospital system as a help desk. Did that for a couple years, and I started working help desk in the county government. Did that for a couple years, and I just was like, there's not that much money in basic, like desktop support or help desk or whatever. So I wanted to do a little bit something more challenging, and becoming a network engineer was my goal, and that's how I did it. First name Network, last name Bruh. You want to ask me other questions? Just hit me up on the email, man, or anything, man. But anyways, that's all I got for y'all today. Y'all hit me with the comment. Hit the like button. Subscribe to the channel. We do this Monday through Thursday, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. For now, comment, like, subscribe to the network.